Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. Today is the 31st of August. It's 2 minutes before 9 in the morning. We're still having a reprieve from the hot weather, thank God. High of 90, what's it now, 80 now. 90's easy for us. Same tomorrow, Monday 91, Tuesday 90, Wednesday 89. Thursday 89, Friday 89, Saturday 88, 89, 89. Okay. So once we get into the high 80s, Israel for us becomes easier to live in. Okay. It's one thing to live in the 90s. That's very uncomfortable, but you can get around. When it gets into the hundreds, it's very hard. You don't want to go out of the house. The streets remind me of what New York City looked like when there was a blizzard. When it's that hot. Now I got an issue here with my cables. Let's fix it. That was it. Okay, so what we're going to cover today is rather serious, and when I cover the rather serious topics, the offerings go down. But I have to tell you that it's all a good thing for you if you're a believer. All things work to good for those who love the Lord. So, you know, the church people run around calling it what do you call it? A horrible event, and bad stuff's coming. It's not really bad stuff. If you listen and you think like them, it is, but it's not. Okay. What do you want to see the United States go forever? Look how they treat you. Do you want that to continue? And their world influence to keep growing? You want Iran to continue oppressing the promised land where all believers are going to live shortly? Do you want this? I mean, well, come on. It's good news, but people interpret it as bad news because they picked that up from the church. It's not bad news. Be still, prophecies being fulfilled. Lift up your heads, your redemption draweth nigh. These things are just before redemption. You gotta get ready for this in a good way, okay? And Yeshua repeatedly kept telling us, watch, watch, watch. That's what I'm doing. Okay? Yeah, we could sit here and do endless Bible studies. We could talk about, where, Moses was, how his life went in Egypt. We could talk about, all the history stuff. And, how's that going to help you today? I mean, we do Bible studies, but I'm here to teach the prophecies of Israel, which predominantly concern Israel and the countries that are trying to do things to Israel. I don't really get into too much, about other stuff. Now, Ukraine and Russia, yeah, I'm getting into that. Okay. Um, so we're gonna. What's going on with Trump? They're gonna sentence him September 18th in New York City for, I don't know, 40 counts of crimes. Now, I'm sure Trump is trying to hit the federal courts as a former seated president to have an appeal on the sentencing, um, maybe move the matter to federal courts, maybe get it postponed because the election and election interference, all kinds of things he's going to try in the courts, but it hasn't worked yet, and you're looking at a little over 2 weeks. And there's I would say a 95% chance or 99% chance that they'll sentence Trump, and they're not going to put him in house arrest or put him in probation. I doubt that. They want to stop Trump from electioneering. They want to get him off the streets. And the judge would most likely hand his sentence down. And all they got to do is give Trump a 6-month sentence or something like that, and it works for them. And I'll explain that. And they're going to say Trump's a flight risk. They're not going to give him 6 months. They're probably going to give him many years. And they just say Trump's a flight risk. And he can't post bail while he appeals the sentencing. Now, normally when they sentence somebody for petty crimes, which is what Trump did, and he's not going to jail for 1 million years. They'll very often tell the guy if he has bail that the bail could stand and he might be able to stay out until his appeal gets heard, or they might give him 30 days to gather his affairs together and then report to prison. Many people are released after their sentencing and they're told to report to a certain prison on a certain date, or that kind of thing. And that gives them time to get their affairs in order. And these people too were found guilty previously, and then they had a sentence hearing sometime later. Now, other people that don't post bail and stuff like that, flight risk, dangerous people, like maybe an armed robber, a rapist, people that are using violence and weapons in the course of their felonies. They may just get grabbed by the court right then and there. Bailiff take him into custody, and then they work him over to the prison, and he gets booked in and that kind of thing. Okay, he doesn't hit the streets anymore. All right. Sometimes they don't even let him out while they're waiting for sentencing. They just keep him in jail. It depends what you're dealing with and who and what the prosecutor wants and the judge wants and all that stuff. Okay. The National Guard has moved into a hotel in New York City. They're filling it up with National Guard. They're expecting trouble. Okay? And we're going to, during the broadcast, talk about this in depth. Okay? This is serious. All right? Real serious. And we're going to cover the Bible prophecies about the daughter of Babylon, America, that show that there's going to be a civil war type event. And we're running out of time, so I expect that this does not have to be the trigger. I can't say 100%, but it's definitely worth looking at, considering, and studying, because it can very, very likely be a trigger, not only for ruler against ruler, but for the sleeper agents to unleash in the middle of this, which I'm sure Iran and Russia and China and North Korea and Venezuela and other countries really want to see happen. Okay? All right. Now, what I'm going to do now is go into the live stream while people are coming in and make sure we got sound and picture, and then put a couple of fast posts up. Go into the live stream. We got sound and picture. Okay, so I'm still waiting for people to come in. There's not that many people here right now. Yeah, I try to shorten the videos, you're right, and I try to get them short. I think the least I could get away with really is 2 hours. Okay, let me put my posts up. What's the matter, Chief? Chief's still having trouble walking, but he can't walk when he wants to. It's a slow healing, I'm afraid. But keep the prayers going for Chief so he could get his legs back working right. It was trauma, it's not disease. Chief, could I help you? What do you need me to do? I don't understand what you need. The floor is slippery. It's tile and I cleaned it, I think, last night. So he's having trouble in his weakened leg thing getting good traction. I think that's his problem right now. But I do believe healing's on the way. It's just not one of those immediate ones. I think he's settling down. Okay, being a Bible-believing site, Old Testament, New Testament, I'm going to do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right. So September 18th is Trump's sentencing date. That could be postponed. It could, appellate court could do something about it. I don't know. Their fear is that if Trump manages to win the election, he can then take office and pardon himself. So they're trying to create an impossible scenario. Remember, there's been, the 2020 election, many accusations about that. I'm going to just leave it at that. And there was the assassination attempt, which had its very suspicious points about it as well. Now I'm going to leave it at that. And now we see this. New York City charging them for a whole bunch of crimes that normally a prosecutor wouldn't really bother prosecuting somebody for, or they might just tell them, take a year of probation, or pay a fine or something like that. Not want to make a whole big debacle out of it, like what's going on. All right. So that casts some suspicion around the whole thing too. So Trump has lots of lawyers, and I'm sure they're working 7 days a week trying to come up with a solution for this, to keep him on the streets minimally till the election, hopefully till January 20th when they swear him in. And then right after he takes his hand off the Bible, he can go to the White House and sign a pardon. Now, the crimes don't prevent Trump from becoming elected as president. And there is no prohibition against him pardoning himself. And I don't think the Congress has any ability to overrule that. They could attempt to impeach him. And then based on the impeachment, they could strike that pardon, I guess. But I don't think that'll happen at all if he gets in. Now, the Obama, Biden, and that gang, those people are afraid Trump's going to go after them for revenge. Trump blames them for what's happening to him. He probably blames them for the assassination. You know, stuff like that. He's verbalized things like that. So if they lose control of the White House, Trump will put his people in, the CIA, the Justice Department, the NSA, the Pentagon, the military, all of this, right? And he's a vindictive guy. He'll start a witch hunt against them, digging for things he can find, and he'll find things, and then return the favor to them. And they'll find themselves criminally prosecuted. That doesn't mean they'll go to jail, but he'll come after them. I don't know every way he would come after them. He might come after them in, I don't know. Where is my boy? A little bit of bread here. He's walked all the way over here, so it's a good sign. Okay. 42 counts, I think. 42 crimes he was found guilty of. Now, how could they sentence Trump, take him into custody immediately on September 18th, put him in jail, limit his communications because they'll say he's going to call for civil war? I don't know where they're going to keep him. I don't know what the Secret Service is going to do. They'll probably just turn him over to the locals. Maybe they'll say they're going to have an agent there to supervise it, periodic visits, and talk to Trump about security, stuff like that. Could it leave the door open for an assassination? Sure. They may not bother with anything like that. So if he's sentenced and he's locked up in jail and he did win the election, how does that work? Well, he pardons himself. So Trump may be strong enough politically to win the election even if he's in jail. People view Trump as their savior. Okay? If Trump ran for Prime Minister of Israel, he might win. He can't, but I mean, just to make conversation. So, this is what I'm hearing from people. The United States supports dictators, well, this is what I'm saying, around the world. They have no democracy to speak of. They're kings, emirs, running countries and having exorbitant wealth for them and their family. And the many billions and billions and billions of dollars. Now, what are these countries? Well, just to name some: Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. These are all the Sunni states that are supposedly, some of them are going to help Israel take down missiles and drones. The United States has military there protecting them, loves them, gets along with them, gives them weapons, etc., etc. And they're not democracies. They're totalitarian dictatorships called, royal families. Kuwait suspended their parliament about 2 months ago because the emir, the one who runs Kuwait, was like a king with another name, didn't want any problems with Iran and all that. And the United States has 5,000 troops there protecting this character. So if we listen to the words, America supports democracies and free elections. But if we look at their actions, America supports totalitarian governments. Okay? Period. American military and equipment now, it's in Saudi Arabia, it's in Jordan, it's in Oman, it's in the UAE, it's in Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait. Iran is not really a democracy. They go through motions, but they have a guy called Khomeini who's the supreme leader, and he could override anything. So there's no democracy there. Russia claims to be a democracy. America doesn't like it. There was an interview some news reporter did with some people that did not announce that they were militia. They acted and talked like they were militia, but they never said they were. And what they said was this, and I put it up on my Telegram channel. What they said was that fighting for Trump is a holy war for God. One of them said that. Seriously. And they were referencing stealing another election. Or stealing an election. I don't know what happened in 2020, but a lot of people think it was stolen. I think they got something there. Are they right? In my opinion, I think they're right. But that's just my opinion. So, if the Democrats were going to do monkey business with the election and Biden came out an overall winner, this is what one of the commentators was saying, that it wouldn't fly. People would say, well, this guy Biden doesn't know if he's on the moon or Earth. So, how could this happen? Because they know about his mental issues. So they got him to pull out of the race, and they put the camel in Kamala because they think they can get more credibility with that. And then you read polls that they might have influence over. I can't prove that they do or they don't, but let's assume it's possible anyway. And they show Kamala's only behind by 2 or 3 points, which is, to me, hard to believe. So, they feel they got a better chance of making that fly versus Biden. Now, if Trump was out on the streets, he would easily dedicate, $40, $50 million to have people running around observing polling stations and seeing what's going on with video cameras and things like that. But if he's in jail, that's probably not going to happen, is it? No. Now, I get the impression that if they put Trump in jail in New York City, these militia, patriot type, gun people, whatever, are going to say, they're going to see the futility of Trump prevailing in the election. And they're going to say the election was stolen right away. And they were saying they're going to rise up with arms. One guy said if anybody tries to put me in a FEMA camp or something like that, referencing these activities, he would kill them. Then they said something very interesting. They said that they're of the belief strongly that the American military would not fire on them for trying to save Trump in the election. Okay? I myself don't think that's entirely true, but I think it's partially true anyway, which could divide the American military, and that is going to have bad repercussions. What the military would likely tell them, in my opinion, is, look, if we let this go on, the country will be ripped in two. Like the Civil War, tens of millions of people will die. We'll be weakened, we'll be invaded by China and Russia and everybody else, and for the good of the country and your families and your children and you've got to stop this rebellion. We got to restore order. And a lot of them will go for it, in my opinion. But never all of them. Never. What about the police? In the beginning, the police will be all in, all gung-ho to help the government. Now, I've worked in law enforcement as a young guy, and I want to tell you that the police of today are not the police of 50, 60 years ago, where they were out there and they had a serious concern for protecting the people. Even in New York City, going back to the 50s and 60s, when there was a lot of corruption, pre-Serpico, a lot of corruption in New York City. Okay? Store owners would pay them. See, their approach was to take small amounts of money from a lot of different people. Store owners would pay them so people could double park in front of the stores, triple park like on Saturday and stuff. They, some people would take their store and put goods out on the sidewalk, obstructing the path of people, putting fruit and vegetables or dry goods out or other things against the laws and the codes, and they would pay the police, but not big money. Police would go and to the stores in their precinct, and they would get free or discounted clothing or various goods and stuff like that, right? Yet at the same time, if you put in a call for a burglar in an apartment, they came like gangbusters. They didn't waste time. They got there fast. they'd run with the lights without the siren. They'd say, "Where is he? Where did you see him?" And they would get very serious about finding the guy. And they found the guy. This would have been in the 50s in the building next door to me in the Bronx, and they were taking him out of the apartment house, and the guy was giving him some trouble. They caught him in the apartment, apparently. The neighbors must have heard it or saw it and phoned it in. And they run over there, uniforms, detectives. They were serious. They didn't want crime. They took the nightstick and they jammed it in the guy's stomach. He was barfing and stuff like that. They hated crime. They wanted to keep everything peaceful and quiet in their precinct. That's the district. They divided the city up into 100-something precincts. And they would fight against crime on many levels. In the 50s, you had street gangs of kids, and they would come around and bust the kids up. They say, "Not in my precinct." They'd go to another precinct and they'd bust them up and say, "Not in my." They'd hit them. I was a little kid and I saw the cop confront a few of them at the same time. He had about 6 of them, maybe 8, I don't know. He had no fear. And one said something to him, and back slapped the guy in the face for wise talking. They didn't want this coming around. They had no use for this. Okay? If somebody stuck up a bank, and it happened, or a store, they'd go after this guy like crazy. They'd go like crazy to get this guy. So they kept things safe. Women could go out at night, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and go to a store. Kids could play by themselves. Me and my friends used to ride the subways all over New York City. I was 11, 12 years old, 12, 13, something like that. And we didn't have any concerns. They had then called transit cops. They put them on the trains. They wore a regular police uniform. Their badge would say Transit Authority instead of Police Department or something. They had full police powers, guns, and everything, and they would patrol on the trains and the train stations, and they didn't want any of this going on the train system either. So they were corrupt. They didn't live like regular people. They had private houses in New York, which is unusual for most people. That's rather expensive. Not nice cars, and they took vacations and nice clothes. It wasn't customary, they couldn't live like that on the salary, But they knew that they had to fight crime or the whole thing would fall apart. So you had a pretty realistic, police department, Okay. But it was a corrupt police department, and the corruption went up on many levels. There was a woman, now we're in the 60s, I think the mid to late 60s, and things were getting, probably mid 60s, things were getting bad in the neighborhood, in the Bronx in general. New York City was starting to deteriorate. And this was just about when the hippie stuff started. Before the hippie stuff, they had beatniks. And beatniks, the police didn't bother with them. They weren't using drugs. The beatniks were drinking wine, and they didn't care about them. They ignored them. Beatniks didn't do crime. So a woman got killed. A lot of people in New York didn't have a washing machine and a dryer in their apartment. They put them in the basement, and you had to put quarters in to run it. But the apartments were small, and they didn't have these things. So usually the basements weren't that secure. Somebody could walk in off the street. So she was down there doing her laundry or something like that, and she was like 45 or something like that. Somebody came and raped her and killed her and left her there. So the neighborhood became saturated with cops asking questions all over the place. I mean, they were all over the place. They were taking this very seriously. And there was a guy in the neighborhood. His name was Norman or something. He was a local, a homeless person, you would say. He was probably 20, 22 years old or something like that. He was a dropout from school, and he would hang around with kids that were off in a bad direction, that were younger than him, and the police knew he was there, and they didn't like him because they figured he would commit crimes. So we used to go to a school after work, no, in the evening. They would open up the public school, and it would be a community center for the kids. I think you paid $3 a year or $6, something like that. And they had ping pong, pool, bumper pool, a room where there was music playing and kids could dance or listen to music. There were places you could just sit and talk and hang out. So you weren't on the streets. The teachers that were watching this place were typically World War II veterans, and they were tough cookies. That's why they would take this job to earn extra money, but they were pretty tough. And they would stand up to gang kids or kids trying to push drugs or get kids to commit crimes and stuff, to the point of physically throwing them out of the school. And if they called the police would 100% take the side of the teachers running the community center at night. They also opened up the gym, and there were basketball games, and there was a weightlifting room. It was a way in the winter you could hang out, get out of your house, and hang out there. You didn't have to go, you didn't have to stand outside in 20-degree weather. You could hang. So that's what went on, right? So this kid used to come around there, and the teachers felt sorry for him. They would give him an overcoat they got from somebody, and then he wouldn't have it the next day. He sold it to somebody, So the police framed this vagrant kid. Norman was his name. They framed him for the murder of this woman. So what they probably did was they took him in, hit him with a phone book, threw him down the steps, put his head in the toilet, enough that he confessed. And it was in the papers, and we thought they solved the crime, and it was it. And then about a year or two later, I was downtown in Greenwich Village with my friends, and I saw him there. So apparently he got out of jail. I don't think the court ever sentenced him. He probably was held in jail for months before the trial. Anyway, he got out of jail. Maybe they caught the real killer. We don't know. But that was pretty awful police work, what they did, because the real killer's running around loose. And that was the beginning of the deterioration of the city. So a corrupt police department is in reality a bad police department. So the police in America, what they are today, are bullies, thugs, and they're basically mercenaries. In Arkansas, the average state trooper, highway patrol type, is making $59,000 a year. Now, that's not great money today, but in Arkansas, if you're living in a rural area, it's certainly comfortable. Now, the average California highway patrolman is making $111,000 a year. Now, correction officers that work in the jails routinely go over $100,000 a year. And in many, many police departments around the country, police go over 100,000 a year because they get overtime. Overtime is time and a half until it's a certain amount of hours, I think 10 hours in a week, and then you go to double time. And if you work um, overtime on a holiday, like a Christmas, Thanksgiving, you get triple time. So they go in, some make $150,000, $160,000 a year. So they're basically like mercenaries. If you join, a Blackwater or one of those mercenary companies, you were in the special forces for 10 years, they put you in, I don't know, Ukraine or someplace, they're not going to pay you more than $150,000 a year. And it's a very, very dangerous job. Okay? So these guys are living rather well. So they do what, and the governments know this, and they give them orders, and the people do it. Like they pull you over, and they have a little machine that tests the darkness of your tinted windows, and your windows are too dark, and they give you a $900 ticket. That's not America. That's not America. Okay? Speeding ticket fines is so excessive. They make you get your car inspected every year. If you don't, oh, big trouble. Get pulled over, tickets, if you sign for a ticket and you don't go to court, you don't show up, they put a warrant out for your arrest. You see, they're making criminals out of Americans that really aren't criminals. If the guy has a ticket and he doesn't pay the ticket, why don't they just not let him renew his license plates or his driver's license? That'll work. What do you got to go put warrants for his arrest? You see, they want the people to fear the government. Okay? So, the police, if there is an uprising with patriots, gun people, survivalists, preppers, militias, the police in the very beginning will be gung-ho when they realize that these people are standing up to them and saying, we're going to kill you. In numbers, not 3 or 4, 250. Go to the police department and they send a spokesman in and says, we don't want to kill you. Stand down. That's it. That's the final. No more warnings. You can't win. We know where you live. We'll come to your houses. We'll kill you. You're suppressing our rights. You're helping a lousy government. You're ruining our country. You're ruining our way of life. Stop it. Don't resist. And many of them will not resist. Many of the police will just play dead. Okay? What does that mean? They report for this shift. They get in their car and they patrol at 10 miles an hour or 5 miles an hour in areas where they're pretty sure nothing's going to happen. If there's an accident report, they'll go. If there's a man or woman in distress in the street laying down, like a victim or somebody got sick or too drunk, they'll go. If there's a lot of other kinds of events like armed robbery, car theft, carjacking, assault, fights, they won't get there for 15 or 20 minutes or longer. And they'll surveillance the area before they go in, or they may not even go. In other words, they're going to be afraid to do anything. They're riding around in a marked patrol car. Now, some of these cops get a car that's armored. Usually the front doors have some Kevlar panels in there that will stop a 44 Magnum, a 12 gauge shotgun, lots of things like that, which is what a street punk's going to have. or a street criminal. A street criminal is rarely going to run around with a military assault weapon, like an AK-47 or AR-15 223. These gun people, militias, patriots, whatever, are all going to be carrying military assault weapons and pistols. And it's legal to have armor-piercing ammo for a rifle, not a pistol. So there's a ton of that ammo running around. And they'll just shoot the cops a bullet. Believe me, will pass right through the car with the Kevlar and the armored glass. It'll go right through. And I don't know what they do about the windshield. Maybe they get a bulletproof windshield. I doubt they do. See, when you start getting armored glass, it's very thick and it's very heavy. And when you start trying to protect your vehicle against rifles, you're talking 28 millimeter glass, real thick glass. The weight is incredibly heavy. And then with the doors, you got to put 1/4-inch cold rolled steel in there, armor steel. And big thick windows that don't go down. You can't, to make the window go down with, heavily armored glass, you gotta, instead of having a little window motor like this, you gotta buy a window motor like that. And it could go down, and they usually just drop it a few inches, but police need to be able to put the window down. In other words, if you're going to put Kevlar in the two front doors and you're going to change the glass so it stops pistols and shotguns, you're not going to increase the weight of the car that much. So you probably have to get heavy-duty shock absorbers, which police cars have anyway. And that's about all you have to do to the car. Now, the brakes will be worse. The acceleration will be worse. The differential, the drive shaft, the transmission will wear out, the tires will wear out, but it's not going to be that noticeable. And they're mostly going to do this in an urban environment. They're not going to do it for the highway patrol that are running around on the highways, because they don't have such a dire threat like this, okay? When they're stuck in traffic, police car in traffic, there's street cars in front of them at a red light, somebody can walk up to the car with a rifle and boom, 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 and that's it. Or if they got full auto, let me tell you what it takes. An AK-47 will cut through regular pistol and shotgun armor, no problem. 40-round clip will dump in under 3 seconds. They walk over to the car, they go, boom, empty clip, 40 rounds in there, 2 dead cops, dead as a doornail. Frequently they'll use 2 shooters, one on either side, where they'll be in the back and they'll shoot at a front angle so they don't get crossfire, or they'll be in the front and they'll do the same thing in reverse. They'll be careful enough not to get crossfire on each other. It's that simple. They could also snipe them. They just get up on a rooftop and they wait. They know police go down this street. They wait. They have a very high power rifle with a scope. They take a shot at it, 100 yards, 200-300 yards. Not any serious sniping. And just put a couple of rounds through the car and that's it. They'll attack the police station. They'll use an explosive to blow the tower down for their radio comms. They'll just shoot up the police station. They'll destroy, the police station usually has a yard where they park the cars. They'll shoot the cars up. They'll put the police out of business and they'll take over. They'll call themselves rangers or sheriffs, and they'll take the place of the government, and they'll take that's what will happen if civil war goes all the way. The police will be afraid of them. Now, what is their plan? Well, their plan's going to be to unseat the federal government and seat Trump. So they would ultimately storm the White House, thousands of them, and the president wouldn't be there. The Secret Service would stand down. They would open up the gates. They would say, "Hey, we're with you. No resistance." Okay, tell us what happened. Well, the president left on a helicopter. I have no idea where he went, but you want to go in and walk around and check it out? Go ahead. We stand down. They might say, "Take your guns off." They'll take their guns off. Say, "Sure, we stand down." Are these gun people, militias, going to kill the Secret Service when they say we stand down? Not a chance. Police can't hold up against them. Police can only operate against people that want to be policed. When you got enough people rising up who no longer want to be policed by these police, they cave in. There's some other things that the Biden administration can concoct. One is that there can be a war in Iran or with Russia, Ukraine at the same time, and Biden could execute an emergency executive order stating that we're in a state of war and we have to suspend the election in November. Could he do that? Yeah. Would it seem credible? Yeah. Because they'll say there's too much danger, too much tension, we can't stand. There'll be violence at the polls with shooting. We gotta wait till things calm down. And he'll say we'll suspend it for 90 days, and then he'll remain president, of course, right? And of course, in 90 days, they could do another 90 days. So there's no election at all. So he stays. Right? Could Congress override it? He'd probably ignore Congress at that point. He may try suspending Congress because of the war. What if he tells Congress we're evacuating you to the mountain in Colorado for your own safety? And they go, and now they're locked up in Colorado. No, we can't take you back. There's threats. The FBI and military intelligence has confirmed threats. We can't take a chance. You've got to stay here. We can't let you have communications. We have to secure communications. And there you have it. So also putting martial law out there is a high probability. What martial law would look like in America today is a mishmash mess. Probably they would put martial law in certain states and cities. It has to be enforced by troops and the police. It would probably be accompanied by curfew, so you could get up and run about, do your business at 6 o'clock in the morning when you got daylight, and then they'd probably say by 8 or 9 in the evening, you're off the streets. If you're on the streets, you'll be arrested. If you have a private house, could you sit out in your front yard or your backyard? Backyard, probably. Front yard, I have no idea. It would depend on how the police want to enforce. Can you take your dog for a walk in the neighborhood? Absolutely not. Your dog would go to the pound and you'd go to jail. Now they'd let you out, but you'd have a bad fine, you'd be questioned, what were you up to, stuff like that. Checkpoints would be set up around the cities, at major arteries in the cities, and they pull people over at random. They could tell you cannot take your guns out of the house. There's no guns on the street. They'd probably try that. What else? People would have to go to work. A lot of people work at night. They would try to make provisions for that. I don't know how. Truck drivers need to move goods. I don't know how they would do it. There's a lot of scenarios. You know, generally what they have done, and this is in place now, is what they call essential workers, like the phone company, water department, sewers, electric, gas, police, fire, ambulances, medical people, hospital workers, pharmacy workers, and so forth, get a card from FEMA or an ID card. And that lets them go out during lockdowns, okay? So they would hit a roadblock and they would show their FEMA card and pass. So that happens. Are the ghetto people going to stay off the street all night long? I doubt it. They'll ignore the curfew in mass, but they won't go out of their ghetto. Drug dealers will sell, prostitutes will prostitute themselves, crime will go on. Sometimes when they do a curfew, if they see people out on the street, they may say, we'll shoot you. But that is just talk. They're not going to do that so quick. So, reason I'm bringing this up is September 18th. It's 2.5 weeks away. I don't hear any court coming out and saying that Trump can't be sentenced until after the election or anything like that. Once he's sentenced, the judge, barring an action from a higher court, the judge just tells the bailiff to hold Trump and book him, and that's it. He's in the system. He's wearing prison clothes. Now, you might see Trump get convicted and put in jail, and then you might see his lawyers go to the Supreme Court and the federal appellate courts claiming that this is all bogus and they're endangering his life for crimes where there was no threat of injury to anybody, paperwork crimes, and he should be put on probation or house arrest or something like that, The court, fearing a civil war, may grant something like that. Don't know. Maybe not. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll tell you right now, the potential for this to go ballistic is extremely high. There's many millions of people in America that are well armed, not just with guns and bullets. They got assault weapons, they got scopes, they got night optics on these rifles. They know how to use them very well. They got pistols, they got rifle armor piercing ammo, they got supplies, they got food, they got clothing, they got communications, they've already trained, and they're good to go. Okay? They got solar, they can go off grid, they're ready to go off grid. They're good to go. And they'll rebel. They don't care. They're not going to let Biden and Kamala go again. They had it. They're hanging on. They're waiting for Trump, and Kamala and Biden take Trump away from them. To them, it's doom and gloom, and they're going to go. I'm telling you, I know these people from my past in America. Not, as a gun guy. These people will assemble, get together, and they will mobilize. They'll assemble. They'll travel. There'll be a call to go to Washington, D.C. They'll assemble 1 or 2 million people. I'm serious. They will, and they'll go. And if the state troopers try to block them, there'll be violence, and the state troopers will die. They will die. They have so many ex-military special forces amongst these people. It's not funny. The police will have these Bearcats, these heavy armored vehicles with rubber tires that could stop a 50 caliber. But the special forces know how to disable it. These things are easy to take out. They're not that hard. First thing you would probably want to do is block them so they can't move. I mean, in a very simple, stupid way, you could just take a lot of wood and paper and put it under the vehicle and light it up and say you're going to get roasted inside. See, these people will kill. They see the police and the military stopping them as wanting to destroy their whole life and want them and their children and their families to live in a society with what they consider perverted ideas and morals, and no freedom, and they won't put up with it. They will kill the cops, they will kill the military, but do I think the military would go around and bombing its own people in America? No. There's a certain amount of pilots that would, and there's a certain amount of special forces that would, and all this, but by and large, no, I don't think they will. But the real risk, and you got to listen hard, is if this uprising over Trump happens and it goes violent, it has to go violent, real violent, like shooting, takeovers, destruction of police departments, overthrowing city governments, county governments, state governments, federal government offices, stuff like that. In a lot of these states, they'll just attack all the federal offices, like Geological Survey, which used to be CIA. They'll go after FEMA, they'll go after IRS, they'll go after FBI, no problem. The FBI, you'll find when they meet a lot of resistance, they'll evacuate. They'll go take over military bases and steal equipment. They'll get tanks, all kinds of things, shoulder-fired rockets. These guys know how to fly helicopters, jets. They'll take the bases out. They know exactly how to take the bases out. The bases are poorly defended. And they'll steal the equipment if the sleeper agents don't get there first. See, when this starts, the sleeper agents, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, they're all going to say, this is not a golden moment to overthrow America. It's a platinum moment. And they'll attack the bases, thinking the militia gun people will make it even worse, and it'll just be sheer chaos. And it's in Bible prophecy, and we'll cover that now. I'm going to take a break for a minute. Now, where's my boy? Oh, he's moved. All right, at least he's moving around pretty good. Okay. Now, if you don't understand that the daughter of Babylon's America, and that's a whole big live stream by itself. But I have a lot of videos in my YouTube channel they're put under the live section where you could see that broken down and described, and many other people have done this, not just me. I mean, this became widespread knowledge around 2012, 2013, 12, and it really is. It can't be anything else. It says, daughter of Babylon's of many waters, 8,000 rivers, right? You probably have 8,000 or so lakes. You got the Great Lakes, you got the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Gulf of Mexico. So they say, oh, it's Rome, the Vatican. Understand the Vatican has about 300 people living in it, not one of them are Jews. They're not on many waters. They have a few bottles of holy water, and they got water fountains and toilets and sinks, but they're not on water. Okay? They're not the great voice. Who listens to the Vatican? Just the Catholics. Buddhists, Jews, Muslims, atheists, communists, Hindus, they don't listen to the Vatican. They'll listen to America. The hammer of the whole earth. How does that Vatican hammer the whole earth? It's absurd. It's absolutely not the Vatican. No, Yaffa, no. No, I'm not doing it. All right. Now, they say it's Saudi Arabia in Mecca or Medina. How could that be? On many waters? They're in the desert. The hammer of the whole earth? Who the heck listens to Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia goes to America for help. The great voice, who listens to them? Talks about multitude of people in America, the melting pot. It's America. Okay. Let me check the chat for a minute. Nothing in the Constitution says he can't serve from jail, but it's ridiculous. He couldn't be in jail and be a president. They'd have to put him on a military base in jail or some crazy thing like that. But remember, New York City is sentencing him. You're not going to be able to get away with new sway bars and control arms because they'll roadblock the highways with heavy weapons. Yeah, it's not going to work. Okay. By the way, the Russian army is advancing steadily in Ukraine. They're going about 3 kilometers a day. So Ukraine's not doing so hot. And if you think NATO is going to sit still and let Russia take out Ukraine, boy, that's not what's going to happen. They'll go to war. There are now about 200 to 300 American soldiers in Israel, in the Negev, at the base where they have their very sophisticated radar, the X band or the X radar, which is supposed to be the best radar system anybody in the world has. America put one up in Israel, in the south, in the Negev, the desert. It's a very heavily protected base. It's got walls around it. And they're there, obviously, running the radar, interpreting what it picks up. You know, it's like an intel operation. You got to remember that, you know, if they got 200 or 300, you got shifts, days off and stuff like that. So, you know, it's, you might have 50 or so guys on in a shift, and that's easy to understand. Okay. One thing, to stay back to Trump a minute, that Trump could do, and he probably already did, is have interviews with people like Hannity and other friends of his, right? Elon Musk. Now, before September 18th, and video record these to be played if he gets locked up in jail. And it'll be talking about, you know, basically the people should rise up against the Biden administration violently. Or you could just have these released on social media. It wouldn't be hard to do. And it would be effective and probably work. And I'm sure Biden's smart enough to do that. If they've got a whole hotel in New York City full of National Guard, they're expecting trouble. Like people might storm the courthouse to free Trump. I've got a prayer request here for SS Sierra Sierra SS Sierra Sierra SS, healing for what the doctors are calling a spot on the brain, which is causing symptoms. So healing for SS. Now for JH, Juliet Hotel. JH, Juliet Hotel. JH. Healing for a broken leg and the strength returns quickly. I believe this person's under medical care. JH, Juliet Hotel, healing for a broken leg and strength returns. Okay? So people in America have been counting on the Trump thing as a deliverance and saying, well, rather than rise up and put the blood in the street of a few million people, let's just wait for Trump. Well, the Biden side of the fence is not interested in seeing that happen in any way, shape, or form. Now, I'm telling you, one option they have is to use a war with Russia and Ukraine and or with Iran as a way to suspend the election. We need to not forget about the sleeper agents, and we need to not forget about FEMA camps. They got tons of FEMA camps. Federal Emergency Management Administration, I think is what it stands for. Have you ever heard once in forever since there were FEMA camps spotted, ever one time heard of people from an earthquake, a flood, a tornado, a hurricane, fires, or anything being evacuated into a FEMA camp where they could live for a few months until they got back on their feet or something like that, with medical and air conditioning and heat and food and water and safety and all? No. Have they ever used these FEMA camps to help victims of catastrophes in America ever once? Never. Never once. Instead of using the FEMA camps, they let people live in tents, sleep on the side of the road for months and years when their houses get destroyed. Yet, the people of America paid for these FEMA camps. There's a lot of them. I don't know how many people they can hold. And I told you this before, and I'm going to tell it to you again. The FEMA camps are there when the time comes to take the true believers and the known Israelites and put them in FEMA camps to prevent them from going to Israel. You think I'm wrong? Tell me why. Have you ever seen them use a FEMA camp for disaster victims of any sort? Of fires, earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, anything? Tsunamis, typhoons, whatever. Never. Ever. Why? Because they're there for a reason. You don't put prisoners of war in there. It's nothing to do with that. They're going to use them like they did in internment camps in California for the Japanese. They took Japanese citizens and they put them in internment camps in World War II after Pearl Harbor. I've been inside these internment camps in the early 70s. I was in them. Well, they weren't. They were basically jails at that time. But they were set up as barracks, okay? And the family would have a divider, which would usually be like a curtain type thing. And they would have a space in a barrack where they would have dressers, little place to eat, cook, beds. To basically be a room with curtains so they could go in there and, you know, eat, sleep, hang out, change, have privacy of some sort, right? The barracks were built like this, boom, 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 typically, or they would build one like this and one on the other side of a courtyard that was fenced in. The courtyard would have benches, like picnic table bench things, basketball hoops, or, you know, stuff for kids to play, and people to sit outside. Okay? The barracks had showers and bathrooms, which they would segregate for men and women, that's all. And they were probably fed in a cafeteria lunchroom. They had head counts, so they walked out of the courtyard probably in a group, so the whole barracks would go at the same time, unless somebody was sick or injured or something like that. And they would march them loosely march them to the cafeteria eating area for chow, and they would head count them on the way out and then head count them on the way in. And they would go in the cafeteria and they would, like a prison. You get your silverware, you get a tray, you get your silverware, you get your plates, you walk down. You got your main entrees, you give the guy the main plate, and the guy dishes the food out, tell him you want this, you want that. Then you get a plate full of salad, you grab bread, you grab butter, jam, this kind of thing, right? Dessert. You go back and sit down. The food was probably pretty much like what they gave the military, which I would say was probably not excellent food and not lousy food, middle of the road food. They had cereal, they had milk, they had eggs, they had meats. They had decent food, let's put it that way. So in their barracks, they probably had a hot plate if it was allowed. Maybe it wasn't allowed because of fire risk. But they might have been able to make coffee and tea and soup. I don't have any idea. Maybe they weren't. And that was how they went through the war. So it was sloppy. FEMA camp would be probably much more dignified. And that's who I think they're saving it for. Can I prove it to you? No. Is it my opinion? Yeah. Could it be that I'm wrong? It's for something else? It could be. I don't know what else it could be. They've just never used it. When they want to detain people for criminal activity, you see, the detaining true believers and members of the various tribes of Israel, they're not really guilty of crimes. I mean, they would say maybe you're guilty of a crime because you were born a Jew, but that's not the same thing. Criminals go into jails. Military type prisoners, what they do is very easy. The military slaps together some barracks, puts up a couple of layers of barbed wire fences, watchtowers, and they make a prison. It's easy for them to do it. They know how to do it exactly. Now, I want to show you something about the NATO facility in Belgium. I believe it's the headquarters. Now, what I'm going to show you is rather shocking. And you can, of course, not take my word for it. Let me find a better picture of this than that. Hold on. Let me get a better picture. I gotta find the picture now. Hold on. I had the wrong picture. you have to look at it carefully. This is the NATO Belgium headquarters roof. If you look carefully, it's the Nazi SS insignia on that roof. You got to pay close attention to it. Ukraine has Nazis. NATO likes Ukraine. Okay? All right. So I'm going to go through the scriptures, the daughter of Babylon, with you for this. And we go to, let's start with Jeremiah 51:7. I'll start with one. I don't want to go through everything in Jeremiah. It takes such a long time for 50 and 51. Thus saith Jehovah, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me a destroying wind. Now, has America risen up against the Lord? Come on. Of course. And will send unto Babel fanners that shall fan her, and shall empty her land. For in the day of trouble, let's check the word for trouble. Ra. I think we got a slight translation issue here. It's not quite right. Let's see what Strong's uses for English. Calamity. Okay. It's the day of vengeance, I would say, is what's referencing. Empty her land for the day of calamity. They shall be against her round about. Let's check the word roundabout. Yep, roundabout. Now, that's what happens to Israel in Zechariah 12. We know America does bad things to Israel, so there you have it. It's a reap what you sow. Against him that bendeth, that would be the bow, I guess. Let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigadine, and spare you not her young men, destroy you utterly all her host. Thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans were the people that lived in Babylon, and they were basically witches, soothsayers, fortune tellers, astrology, not astronomy, astrology. And they that are thrust through in her streets. Let's see what the word for thrust through actually is. Pierce. Let's see how Strong's puts it into English. To stab, pierce, strike, thrust, wound. I would say a bullet qualifies. For Israel hath not been forsaken, nor Judah of his God. Okay? It actually says his Elohim. The Lord of hosts. Though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. Yes, Israel's land is filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. Now, listen. Flee out of the midst of Babel, it's Babylon, and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her lawlessness, for this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. I think we could, day of vengeance, this, put it there. Probably. Maybe not, but probably. He will render unto her a recompense. And we know the day of vengeance is associated with the year of recompenses, but the year word in Israel is Shana. This word is Shanat, so it's not a cut and dry, calendar year or biblical calendar year. It's a year-like period of time. It's not exactly. We can't say the biblical year is 360 days. We can't say that would be a Shana, but this is a Shanat, so it's not a precision. Like in English, how would you do it? Somebody say to you, well, how long have you been playing basketball? You say, oh, I don't know, about a year. Now, would you say that? Or you might just say, oh, I guess a year or a year. You're not saying, okay, I played basketball for 365 days exactly. You see my point? That's what the Shanat word is. It's not exactly 360 days. I hope that helps. Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The heathen nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the heathen nations are mad. They're nuts. Babylon is suddenly fallen. Suddenly. That word is 6597. Pitom. Strong's puts it in, I think suddenly is a pretty decent. It says instantly. Even stronger. Suddenly, instantly. You get the idea? Fallen. What's the word for fallen? 5307. The fall. It's probably okay. Let's see what Strong's uses for English. It's probably okay translated. Fall, cast down, cease, fail, and destroyed. So it's probably cast down and destroyed would be a good way of saying it. Howl for her, that means mourn. Howl is mourn, M-O-U-R-N, that kind of mourn, not M-O-R-N-I-N-G, mourn. Take balm. Balm is like a salve or a cream. Take balm for her pain. Is that the right word? Maybe not exactly, but good enough. Anguish, affliction, it's good enough. If so be she may be healed. And the word for healed is Rapha, which is a word that brings you back to medicine and doctors. Yeah, it's healed. So Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her. Take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. So it's probably these patriots and survivalists and preppers that are trying to fix America. Because what's going on by the current powers that be is not good. We would have healed, that's the Rapha word, Babel, but she is not Rapha healed. Okay, it's not working. They can't bring her back. Forsake her and let us go, every one, into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven. And that word should be Shemaim, and it is, maybe you would say heavens or heaven, but not much difference in practical meaning. I think heavens. And is lifted up even to the skies. That's the judgment of Babylon. Jehovah hath brought forth our righteousness. And the word for the righteousness is tzadikah. Tzadikah, it means righteousness. It's a good translation. Come and let us declare in Zion the work of Jehovah Elohim. So, who brought forth their righteousness? Jehovah. What is that? The appearing of the Son and the Son of Man in the Shemaim, in the clouds. And that's when they get everlasting life, which doesn't mean you can't die. That happens in New Jerusalem. Okay. So then what do they do after that? They come to Israel. Declare in Zion. If you can declare it in Zion, it means you came to Israel. Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. Jehovah hath raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes, for his device is against Babel to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of Jehovah, the vengeance of his temple. Set up the stand. Okay, so let me go to the next scripture I wanted to show you out of Jeremiah 51, verse 46. And you got to pay close attention to this. And you know, you could call me an idiot and everything else, but I'm reading you the scriptures. You got to pay attention. I'll start in 51:43, Jeremiah. Her cities are a desolation, a dry land, and a wilderness, a land wherein no man dwelleth, neither doth any son of man pass thereby. And I will punish Bel. That was a demon idol image thing going on in the old Babylon. So it's the same demons in America. I will punish Bel in Babylon, and I will bring forth out of his mouth that which he hath swallowed up. Is that the FEMA camps? Could be. The people in there. And the heathen nations shall not flow together any more unto him. Yea, the wall of Babylon shall fall. The only wall I really know about is the Mexico-American wall. I've never heard of any walls America has on the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Gulf of Mexico, or Canada. Pay attention, verse 45. My people, go you out of the midst of her, and deliver every man his soul from the fierce anger of Jehovah. And lest your heart faint. You see, the people that are trying to shore this up with the Trump thing, they're going against the scriptures. They don't know the scriptures. They probably don't like Israel either, but I don't know that to be sure. And lest your heart faint, and you fear, for the rumor shall be heard in the land A rumor shall come 1 year, and after that in another year shall come a rumor and violence in the land, ruler against ruler. So the rumor is probably talking about ruler against ruler, which is a civil war. So these militia guys running around are not a ruler. So it's probably going to be a certain amount of states are going to rise up over this Trump thing. And then a lot of people are going to back them up with their guns. This is one way it could play out. Remember, the Bible prophecies show us what he's going to do, and it gives us the end result of the event. It doesn't tell us all the blows and the twists and the turns and the ins and outs of the progression of the event. It gives us the close. What the significance is of the close of the event. The meaningfulness or lack thereof, well, the meaningfulness of it, rather. Therefore, behold, the day come that I will do judgment upon the graven images of Babel, and her whole land shall be confounded, and all her slain shall fall in the midst of her. Now, I'm telling you this, and people are going to resent it, but I'm also telling you that you're going to get out if you're a believer. And when Yeshua appears in the clouds, when they see him in Israel in Zechariah 12:10, he's like lightning from the east to the west. And Revelation 1:7, every eye shall see him. Wherever you are in the world, if you're a true believer, you'll see him and you'll be changed, and you shall be like him. 1 John 3:2. When you see him and you're a believer, you'll be like him. John 6:40. If you're a believer and you look upon him or you see him, you'll have everlasting life, which means your life's going to be very, very long, like pre-flood days where they went almost 1,000 years, but much longer. Okay? What did Noah go, or Adam? I don't know. What they, over 900 years, I think. Noah was over 900, I believe. I think. So anyway, and all her slain shall fall in the midst of her. Then the heaven and the earth and all that are therein shall sing for Babel, for the spoilers shall come unto her from the north, saith Jehovah. This could be from the north countries, north of Israel, which could be Iran, Turkey, I don't know, others. As Babel hath caused the slain of Israel to fall. As Babel or Babylon has caused the slain of Israel to fall, so at Babylon shall fall the slain of all the earth. Now this could be a throwback to the old Babylon, because it's the same unclean spirits that ran the old Babylon that's running the new daughter of Babylon. Oh, say, can you see that Babylon? You that have escaped the sword, go away, stand not still. Remember Jehovah afar off, and let Jerusalem come into your mind. It says, let it come in. He's going to give you the pull towards Jerusalem, but he's telling you don't resist it. This is what you're supposed to do. We are confounded because we have heard reproach, shame hath covered our faces. For strangers are come into the sanctuaries of Jehovah's house. Wherefore, behold, the days come, saith Jehovah, that I will do judgment upon her graven images, and through all her land the wounded shall groan. Though Babel should mount up to heaven, and though she should fortify the height of her strength, yet from me shall spoilers come unto her, saith Jehovah. Spoilers are not necessarily taking pillage and loot, they're destroyers. A sound, a cry cometh from murderers, that kind of thing. A sound of a cry cometh from Babel, and great destruction from the land of the Chaldeans, because Jehovah hath spoiled Babel and destroyed out of her the great voice, when her waves do roar like great waters, a noise of their voice is uttered. Because the spoilers is come upon her, even upon Babel, and her mighty men are taken. Every one of their bows is broken. For Jehovah Elohim, for Jehovah El, but in English it says for Jehovah God of recompenses, so we would think now year of recompenses, shall surely requite. And I will make drunk her prince and her wise, her captains and her rulers, and her mighty men, and they shall sleep a perpetual sleep and not wake, saith the King whose name is Jehovah of armies. Thus saith Jehovah of hosts, the broad walls of Babylon Now I'm in Jeremiah 51:58. Thus saith Jehovah of armies, the broad walls of Babel shall be utterly broken. So I guess there's going to be a push through by the cartels and others in Mexico. And her high gates shall be burned with fire, and the people shall labor in vain, and the folk in the fire they shall be weary. All right. So you could read Jeremiah 50:51. You could also read Isaiah 47, which also deals with the daughter of Babylon. So we read ruler against ruler. So a little local militia group is not exactly a ruler, but if a bunch of militias organize and they put a leader in charge of them, I guess he's a ruler. Yes, there's succession going on in Oregon, and there's 2 or 3 states now that have succession voting. That's true. That will also create ruler fighting ruler. Excellent point, Supreme Canon. Excellent point. Yes, that could also do it. I can't guarantee you exactly what the, you know, motivation driving the ruler against ruler is going to be. I just look for possibles and present them to you so you're not caught off guard. But we don't know exactly which one would do it, or perhaps it's a collection of several things that do it. We don't know. We don't know. The U.S. has been telling us for a few days now Iran's going to hit us, and now we're picking up, oh, it's going to be this weekend, and, well, our deterrent value against Hezbollah was in no way, shape, or form good enough, because yesterday they did a 40 small Katyusha rocket-type missile launch. 40. It was short range. It's still a pain in the neck to deal with. It's not good. So Israel has to go back and get them. Look, the only way you stop these crazy, psychotic Muslim terrorists is you kill them, you strip them of their weapons completely, then there's nothing they can do except throw rocks at you, or you put them in jail. You don't make a ceasefire with them. Every ceasefire they made gets broken. We had millions of ceasefires with Gaza. They keep breaking them. We had one with Hezbollah. They break it. And we had one with Egypt going back to the 70s with, I think it was Jimmy Carter, with the giving back the Sinai Peninsula. We got a peace treaty, and look what they did. For years, they let Hamas smuggle enough weapons in to build perhaps 400, 450 miles of tunnels and build all those missiles and rockets and guns and everything else. So they did that while they were in a ceasefire agreement, a peace deal with Israel, and they let all these weapons come in. And it must have been 10,000 big truckloads to make the concrete and the steel beams and the blast doors for all those tunnels. That's one reason Netanyahu just wants to do a 6-week ceasefire with them. He's thinking, well, maybe it'll work for 6 weeks. It's even doubtful it will go that long. You're dealing with people that have a religious guidebook that tells them to make treaties with the enemies and then break it. So it looks like we're not done with Hezbollah. They didn't learn anything the last time. We knocked out probably the vast majority of their long-range missile launchers. So now they're using the short-range junky ones to, they put 40 in the Golan Heights, which is right up there near Lebanon. Not nice. Let me see if we got any new news updates real quick. Tensions are pretty high right now in Israel with Hezbollah and everything else. Okay, let's see what's cooking. Elon Musk says if the camel gets elected, there'll be no more free speech. So he's a very likely place Trump would put videos up with to be played if he gets put in jail. Look, Trump will call for military uprisings in America to get himself out of jail and be the leader. He'll do that. Once they got him in jail, they're going to go after his empire financially. What do you think? Um, okay. Let's see if there's anything else here. This looks interesting. I think that Ukraine just got a day or two ago got the green light to use their F-16s to attack Russia. Russia's starting to do pretty good in overrunning Ukraine, by the way. Yeah, they're both knocking each other's lights out is a good way of looking at it. They're both hurting each other. When is Labor Day? Next weekend, isn't it? All right, I think that's pretty much it. So I will keep you updated. Things are tense in the Middle East. Things are really tense in Europe. Things are normally somewhat tense with China and Taiwan, North and South Korea. And things are about to get extremely tense in America as we approach September 18th. Remember, to a lot of Americans, Trump's like the Messiah. You know, he's going to save them. Take that away from him and they'll start shooting. I have no doubt. Okay, I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife Rivka for our peace, safety, protection, joy, healing of our bodies. Pray for better videos. Pray for our finances. We have some things en route to Israel. Pray, please, that our packages get through. Wars could intervene or something else. I don't know. Pray our packages get here okay. Pray for Chief that he continue to heal up quickly and gets his legs working better. I don't have any updates on that soldier with the leg damage. I probably won't hear anything till after Shabbat, and then I'll know something. But keep praying. Pray for better videos in the PC Yerushalayim, and I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay? And let's see how I did today. I'm about 2 hours, so it's a little better. Okay, guys. I'm out. I hope you got something out of this. Please hit the thumbs up and Subscribe if you want the updates coming from Israel when the eggs hit the fan. I'm out. Thanks.